Hello everyone, my name is Delyana and here I want to share to you about systematizing materials design. This is from McGrath 2002, Materials Evaluation and Design for Language Teaching. Systematizing brainstorming. McGrath 1992 outlined an approach to lesson planning based on a simple framework from systematizing brainstorming. And the most productive starting point here is a text, whether it's written or spoken. Although a visual or a stimulus combining visual and text might also be used. McGrath also stated that thinking of the needs of a particular class and ideally working with one or more college, the teacher brainstorms ideas for the exploitations of this text. And you can see the figure here. This is an ideas graph for lesson planning. And following this kind of systematic brainstorming, the ideas likely to be of the most relevance to the whole class need to be selected, grouped, and organized in a rough sequence. Systematizing the structure of activities and lessons. Roleplay. One simple example of a principled and systematic approach to activity design can be found in the role-play cards suggested by Cunningsworth, and in the approach advocated by Cunningsworth, the conversational turns are specified and assigned. This is the example supplied by a teacher of Russians. Roles are allocated and guidance is given as to the purpose and general directions of the conversations. But because there is a less control at the level of who should say what when, the conversations that results are likely to be the result of genuine negotiations, sounds more spontaneous and therefore constitute a more useful form of practice. And then you can see from this picture, person P is exactly the same as person A, except that he or she is told, you should assume the role of person B. And then from these conversations also we can see that it seems to be controlled by A, who is charged with asking questions about like or dislike and hometown. It is desirable in general either to build in explicit opportunities for both speakers to initiate conversations or to tell students that this is expected at the briefing stage. This is framework for a lesson built around role play, which is provided by Richards 1985. This consists of 6 stages, while stage 1 reflects a general principle of communicative methodology, and stage 2 make business activating or adding to their knowledge of appropriate scripts. In example, what is typically said in these situations. And then stage 3 to 6 are of particular interest. This is Richard's model in figure 7.3a, which is compared by traditional teacher-centered initiation, response, and feedback in figure 7.3b, in which the teacher initiates, the learner response and feedback is provided. In Richard's template here, the learner determines what used to make the input, while in figures 7.3b, the teacher clearly controls the output. Standard exercises with reading and listening texts. One of the factors which led to the search for material design templates was the pressures on teachers of ESP courses to design much of their own material. Scott Carioni, Zanata Bayer, and Quintanilla in 1984 observed teachers simply do not have time to create new exercise every time they come across a worthwhile new text. So they want a standard exercise that would guide their students toward more efficient and critical reading strategies. And you can see the figure here on page 114. Another factor leading to the design of standard exercise was the growth of self-access centers and the need for an economical means of producing material for self-directed learning. Sharon provides further examples for a number of different standard task sheets for use in essays, such as for book reviews, radio or TV program reviews, and tasks based on recorded discussions. Garner and Miller make the point that generic self-access worksheets offer the promise of economy, but may be less appealing than specific worksheets to learners who are pressed for time or feel the need for more guidance. Hutchinson and Waters cautions avoid the assembly line approach, which makes its units look the same, with the same type of text, the same kind of illustrations, the same type and number of exercises. If it doesn't send you to sleep writing them, it will certainly send your learners to sleep using them. So, materials model must be clear and systematic but flexible enough to allow for creativity and variety. Materials for Self-Access Centers or SACs. An SAC is like a library in that it is essentially a materials resource. Unlike a library, most of the materials in an SAC will probably need to be specially prepared. Categories of material is divided into four. They are published materials, authentic materials, adapting and supplementing published materials, and then the last one, specially prepared material. Learner involvement. McGrath here states that learners can contribute authentic materials to an SAC. They can also be encouraged to contribute materials that they have prepared themselves. One further way in which learners can contribute to the development of self-access materials is through their feedback. This is design criteria. Sharon and Dickinson state that such materials should have the following characteristics. The first one, clearly state objectives, clarity of instructions, attractive presentations, clear layout and pathways, and manageability and visibility, support, advice, worthwhile, feedback, and balance and variety. From lesson materials to course materials. A last research. Although economic and practical constraints may also require teachers to produce their own materials, the decisions to develop original material is typically taken when a new course is being designed for which no suitable textbooks can be found. Many of the considerations that influence the designs of original materials for an activity or a whole lesson also apply to sequences of lessons and whole programs. However, planning beyond the lessons is a much more complex undertaking because of the variety of factors involved. Advice, principles, and models. Good materials will have the following characteristics according to Metal 1972. They will set out to teach a predetermined body of knowledge, be divided into teachable segments, take into account such principles as variety, weighting, the content validity of exercises, and the need for recycling. And then the last one, they will take into account local conditions. So that's why Hutchinson and Waters advise use existing materials as sources of ideas, work with other people if possible, and don't expect to write materials that are perfect the first time. Don't underestimate the time needed, and then pay attention to the appearance of the materials. Principles are perhaps even more valuable than advice, and Tomlinson has proposed an extensive set of principles. There are 16 principles here, and you can see the rest on McGrath 2002 on page 154 to 155. Tomlinson's approach is to indicate how the principles could be applied, and here shows how the principles were realized in a particular set of materials. You can see principle 1 is particularly opposite for those who are putting a course together in a hurry and using whatever materials are readily available. The other principles, with the possible exceptions of Principle 5, are probably self-explanatory. Principle 5 relates to the need for materials to incorporate tasks and activities directed towards developing learners' ability to organize and evaluate their own learning as well as strategies for learning. This is from Rosner discussing teachers' expectation of material, sees the impact of communicative principle as being most clearly visible in the following, and this is principle from Rosner. The emphasis in 1 on desirable condition for language learning derived from the hypothesis put forth by Crescent, and point 2 reflects a cognitive perspective. In 3 we can see perhaps a hint of a kind of learner-centeredness that many associate with communicative teaching. Luna reports that experienced teachers adopting a learner-centered approach prepare material with the following characteristics. So this is the characteristic that made by Nan, and you can check the characteristic 2 and 6 here bear on obvious relations to corners. Point 3. Hutchinson and Waters also approach to the formulations of principles like that of Rosner's is to start from the intended effect of the materials, or as they put it, what materials are supposed to do. So this is principles from Hutchinson and Waters. This is the model from Hutchinson and Waters, materials development models. The aim of this particular model is to provide a coherent framework for integrations of the various aspects of learning, while at the same time allowing enough room for creativity and variety to flourish. And then the last topic is the problem. The problem in integration and flexibility. The solution here, there are 3 solutions have been developed. The first one is STEM or topic-based material, a text-based approach in which the focus on a particular genre of text, and the storyline. Particular problem relate to tensions between horizontal and vertical integrations, and between integrations and flexibility. And the second problem is final thought on principle. As Tomlinson notes, good material are those which are consistently informed by the same set of beliefs in principles, and Tomlinson's warn, we should not go too extreme in our adherence to principles, and one principle may in a particular situations be outweighed by other. Thus, the final decisions remains a principle one. Thank you.